Dragoncast.
And I want to cover something that was mentioned last week from the gamer. All right, Lords of the Fallen dev is wrong about politics, and the Elden Ring proves it. This is a Cope and Sieve article. All right, but it says Lord of the developer CIA Games recently pledged it won't include social and political elements in its games going forward because players do not appreciate this. It's a flimsy argument that catered to a very angry but vocal minority. The fact that I am a rambling dragon online and I have 200 followers in the past year, I mean, compared to someone like Hypnotic and stuff who also say similar things, and he's at what, 80K now, I believe, to geeks and gamers, stuff like that, I highly doubt that we're a vocal minority. But I'll get to that for anyone that's watching this in a replay. And it looks at its inspiration proves how little weight this narrative has. Social and political undertones are at the root of every Souls-like. Dark Souls is incredibly overt in its criticism of classism. Humanity is subjugated by a ruling elite who hoard the Lord's souls for themselves, selfishly covering power and wealth. So he sees politics. When we first arrived at Anarlonda, it's lavish splendor, car structure thingy, runs down burgs. Well, everything has left in complete disrepair. This uneven divide between humanity and upper class is made abundantly clear the moment of the Bat Demon's drop was at the entrance, and it's the theme that only grows throughout the trilogy into spiritual successors like Bloodborne and Elden Ring. You see poor living in sewers, which describes self-described gods manufacturing propaganda and false prophecies to corral the undead into sacrificing themselves to continue their age of opulence and greed. With the head of this pantheon fierce humans. So, classifying how religious dogma can be manipulated as a means of control is a core throughout From Software's games, as are the inevitable dangers of greed and selfishness that wealth is built upon. Sowing fear among the masses is a common populist tactic in modern politics. Lord of the Fallen has never shied away from its soul-born inspirations. Basically, long story short, he's saying that his socialism is in Souls games. All right, and then he goes in here, because I'm just going to skip through it, because where's that? He finally gets down here and he goes, a rabble-rousing Twitter poll from the Xeon removing type A, type B in favor of male-female is more shallow as appeasement in the face of the series as that's the struggle for popularity. It is ironically sowing fear amongst the masses to shield itself, right? So here we go. Art is always inspired by the artist's lived experience, giving way to such commentaries on class, power, wealth, and religion, which are all undeniable social and political by nature. Yes and no. Tell me how the Mona Lisa is political. All right. If anyone can tell me how the Mona Lisa is political, by all means, convince me. You can tell me why you think it's political. You can explain the history and lore that could make it political, but how is it political? It's not political art. Tell me how Pac-Man. These games are art, right? Tell me how Pac-Man is political. Tell me the religion of Pac-Man. Just saying. Now, I know that's a cheap blow, but if they're saying all art is inspired by these statements, then all art, Pac-Man games are art, therefore Pac-Man is art. It's included in that. If you're going to say all art, then you have to explain Pac-Man, you got to explain the Mona Lisa. You got to explain that to me. However, I'm not saying he's wrong here, because yes, as an artist myself, I draw inspired by certain things and certain issues, right? And I used to, right? But my politics never defined my art, right? In the past, we drew games. We had games like people had their political beliefs, right? But they never let their political beliefs identify them. They drew what they saw of the world. And I can look at Souls games and explain, yes, he's basing it on this period of history, where you had lords and ladies, right? You had peasants and all this stuff. They want to make the environment feel real, like you're really in a medieval fantasy, right? Or a fantasy medieval thing, right? Dark Souls. They wanted a really dark world, right? Moving on. But the gamers talk about politics. They don't often mean literal politics, but diversity, women who don't conform to usual beauty standards, LGBT representation, black characters that with CI games says it's distancing itself from these things is a clear attempt to appease the same crowd who claim they want games to be more escapism, when it really just means straight and white. Yes. Yeah, okay. Your point. Guess who makes the majority of the world? Straight people, right? Guess who makes the majority of gamers? Straight white males. This is a known fact. Not everyone's male, not everyone's white, right? Like, for example, Hypnotic's Puerto Rican, and you got, quote, Classic Cage, a Latina and female, right? But you have people that have a niche, and they don't like certain things in their politics. They don't want to see this grandstanding, this as my mom would call it, keeping up with the Joneses. If the Jones had a pool, you had a pool. If the Jones daughter was gay, was lesbian, your daughter is now lesbian, right? They wanted good games. They want pretty women, because unfortunately, let me use a parody from a line, because I don't have the video on me. I wish I did. Val Bunny from Married with Children. Men drink beer, right? Pretty women sell beer. Ugly women make men drink beer. All right? In this case, gamers play games. Ugly people, ugly politics and stuff like that, an ugly world makes gamers play games. But pretty women and beautiful art makes players buy the game. Right? So we play games as an escapism, but not just any game. We're going to play a game that attracts us to that world. If that makes sense. A rabble-rousing Twitter poll from CEO, we've been over that. Soulsborne games has always been queer. Okay, let's see it. Passive and religious talk about just one aspect of the Souls. Demon Souls originally had gender locked armor or gear that would alter depending on your gender. The Dark Souls scrapped that idea entirely just 2 years later. This sparked a huge shift from Soulsborne games as a whole, as From Software began to move away from gender conformity entirely. In Dark Souls, Gwendolyn is referred to by male pronouns and even described as a brother, but he was raised as a girl due to his affinity to the moon. We see this representation in his feminine clothing, character model's actual body. This is something that Hypnotic could do explain more, because he's big onto Dark Souls type games. Like, he's a Souls player, he brags about it. I've played them, but I'm not like big into the lore. I played them, I enjoyed them, but never like, to me it's just a game. So I never really delved into the lore of it, right? But I mean, if you know the lore and you want to rant about the lore yourself from reading all this, go ahead. But it's just, but basically, because I'm not gonna go through this whole thing. It's the same song and dance. He's coping and deceiving. It's like, go won't go broke is rightly laughed at because it's so easily disproven. Okay. He mentions Baldur's Gate 3. I mention Baldur's Gate 3 all the time, but he's saying because of Baldur's Gate 3 and Last of Us 2, it's easily disproven. Okay. All right. There's a reason why I had this article, and it's basically because of that, right? Go broke is rightfully laughed at because it's easily disproven. So I'm not going to go through the main article anymore, right? Lords of the Fallen vows to update the game to replace body type. After players vote to keep gender politics out of games. So remember how he said that there's less of us, right? In the aftermath of Merrick Tendency's now viral poll on gender selection in medieval fantasy RPGs, the CEO of CI Games has taken a decisive stance that should appear to resonate with many gamers. Following overwhelming support for the traditional male or female character options, 88% of 49,000 voters, since he announced via X that the studio would not only adhere to these preferences in future games, but also retroactively update Lords of the Fallen to align with player feedback. The market demands, right? The market demands, and he's going to supply that demand. What do you think, regardless if Lords of the Fallen is good or not? the game could run like shit. All right, let's be honest. I don't think I've played Lords of Fallen. I can't remember. Uh, well, but the game could run like shit. But when you try to be transparent and open with your audience, right? Like Dr. Disrespect was saying, and that stuff, you're gonna build a support network. You're gonna build a base, right? But Lords of Fallen instantly abandoned the traditional male-female gender options. They were supposedly inclusive when the game launched in 2003. This drew ire to gaming audience, utterly exhausted by the identity politics of AAA gaming. This announcement sparks a significant shift in the industry. It highlights what many see as a complete rejection of party type A/B system, which has become a flashpoint for gender politics in gaming. It's also the first time a studio has actually listened to fans and made a change like this to reject woke ideology after a game has released. For example, Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie. The original Sonic design was horrible. The fans rejected it. What did the studio do? They went and made Sonic look better to the fans' expectations. And what was the reward? He just came out with Sonic 3 recently, right? And opened in December, right? With Shadow the Hedgehog and stuff, right? I haven't took my son to that yet. It was a crazy holiday season. But I'm just saying, people watched it and made enough money to make a Sonic 2 and a Sonic 3 because they listened to their fans. They didn't listen to some journalist who said, I don't like this because I want my gender affirmation care to be, I want it in. Right? Helping and deceiving. Designed to provide gender-neutral character options, body type EBA allows players to choose traditionally masculine or female bodies without assigning them as male or female. The response for CI Games audience clearly indicates a preference for more straightforward traditional character creation options that doesn't insert gender politics into the video game world. Yeah, because it's fantasy, right? I mean, you could argue that because it's fantasy, we could have AB, but no. People want fantasy, but they want the fantasy to be relatable. If there's a certain... I remember hearing this lecture from our professor. There's a certain amount of realism that needs to be in fantasy to make it believable to someone. If it's not believable, you will not have the player in game psychology. You will not have the viewer art psychology, right? If it's too whimsical, it's too fantastical, that there's no rules that are similar to real world rules. Like, for example, you get Spelljammer is one thing I have a hard time playing with in D&D. Now, some people like it. That's fine. I don't like Spelljammer. I see a spaceship in outer space, and I'm told that we don't need special oxygen masks, this or that, knowing what I know of space. I'm kind of having a hard time. Like, okay, why don't we need that? There's no oxygen in space. Well, it's just it's a different universe. Well, I understand it's a different universe, but still, there's oxygen in space. Because when we climbed the high mountain in the last campaign, we had to check for our oxygen. We had to be careful. Now you're telling me that once we're in space at that same world, we don't need it. I'm rambling here, but you see what I'm saying. You need a certain amount of believability for fantasy to be believable. You can still make up all the things you want, right? But you need some sort of relatability that people can attach to and be able to see. So, like when someone says these male, female, their body types, they're not going to say type A, type B. No. For example, they were trained since birth. They were taught in school. This is a male. This is a female. And then some nobody comes out, goes into the game industry, better it be news or development, says, "Oh, now it's type A, type B." If you don't believe me, you're a sexist bigot. Players still reject that because, like, what the fuck is this nonsense? Because it's in our psyche, it's ingrained in us. You're trying to train us to believe what you want, but it's not going to happen because of the science, the laws of reality that helps us relate to the laws of fantasy. All right, and here's the poll. The studio's willing to suggest based on direct player input with a sharp contrast to the approach taken by other developers such as BioWare with Dragon Age of Belgard. That title introduced an array of progressive customization options, including mixed voice types, adding top surgery scars. But its commercial failure suggests these changes alienated a significant portion of players. But yeah, people didn't want it because that person who said he was a quote unquote queer master destroyed the lore of the game. They destroyed the established, because another thing another requirement for a fantasy game is when you build the world, you're building the rules of that world, right? So, for example, if you say there's magic in the world, let's use D&D, and you say, I'm going to be a paraplegic, and I have a wheelchair. So it says, okay, well, I cast minor illusion. It says here, minor illusion cures all this, and this. That means I can cure your parallelism. You can walk now. That's the rules of the game, right? That's in the game's lore. That's in the game's rules. So here, if we're able to talk to demons, right, and make bargains with demons, or use blood magic, or even cast magic, like for example, I'm just pulling her brain part on her name, and she's in my video. But basically, that went to the wilds that turns into a dragon. I'm pulling a brain fart on her name. But she transfers into dragon. What's to say you can't transform into the gender you want? Why do you need transcars? Why couldn't you drink a potion, a polyjuice potion, or this other thing? Because now once you have magic in the game, anything is possible. You can create that illusion. You can change yourself into that. Why do you need transcars? Because you're not trying to put the rules of the game. You're trying to put yourself into the game. That's a poor example of trying to put the real world into it, because even the real world, that's nonsensical. Because they do that because there's no options to trans yourself, right? So in this case, that's why Dragon Age of Belgrade failed, because they broke the rules of the lore that made the game what it was, that defined Dragon Age for what it was, and put their own political ideology in it. All right? So people seem to succeed in that. I'm going to read the full article because we're running low on time, but I just want to cover Lords of the Fallen because I have a different. We're going to talk about EA games later, but I just also decided to go to NeoGAF, which is a gaming forum. All right, and this was recently in January 2025. And he said Lords of the Fallen changes to male-female body option via patch version 1.7.3 as promised. Currently 67% off on Steam. That was when this was made, January 23. And he goes, improved online connectability, male-female body option, Umbra audio settings. All right. So he's posting that. And one member goes, this is the right kind of virtual signaling. Another person goes, grab the one at Walmart, and it's a PS5 copy. I've been sitting on this game since 2 Christmas ago. I keep getting this trailer unreleased. I really hope I can get to it soon. Enjoy. It's not the best, but there's fun to be had. The first boss filtered so many people at launch. LOL. Right? The game never get fixed. So, and one person's being a little snippy, says that's one way to market game get sales after a boost out launch, I suppose. So they're admitting that there's more of us than there are of them. Remember that article where they says that the people are voting there's actually less of? All right. So there's a lot of people praising this this move. And this is in the gaming for. If you don't know, right? Welcome to you guys. You found the gaming industry's guiltiest pleasure. Come join the fun. So right then and there, we already see that Activision Blizzard is probably going down the wrong pathway. I mean, we already know that. But Lords of the Fallen is getting a lot of praise for their update patch. People are saying, I might go get it as well.
Worlds clash in endless collision. Gaming news with a fierce precision. With a spark so wild it breaks the norm. In the tempest eye of reclaim gaming in Dragoncast! Fire breathing wide, screaming loud. Lavistro's here to shake the crowd.